Continuing now with our talk about and a look at the culture of violence in our society. One woman in our audience tonight has lived a culture of violence since she was a little girl. Cynthia Bibbs, you have been on 24-Hour News 8 before. In a nutshell, your story, please.
I'm Cynthia Bibbs. My son Mark was shot November 19th. I'm on the northwest side. He was shot in his face, twice in his back. Now he's blind in one eye, has less than 50% vision in his other eye.
And it was over, that was one of these
He was
beefs.
stopping someone from going into a store to shoot someone else. The police has that part on tape, and he asked my son, "What do you think? You think I'm
soft?"
Yeah, you think I'm soft? You think I'm soft? And my son said no, and went to pick up his bag. And when he looked back up, the guy shot him in the face. And when he tried to run away, he chased my son, and my son couldn't see, so he fell against a car, and he shot him in the back. And then he kept trying to move away from the car because he couldn't see, and he shot him again in the back.
And he has recovered, but still struggles with some of the after effects of that shooting.
He can't smell, he can't taste.
That case has been resolved, but you also knew, you knew Robin Griggs, you knew Ivana Galloway. They were both, we lost them in December as well. And when we interviewed you back then, I've got to say, Cynthia, you were one of the reasons we decided to do this town hall because of your frustration with all of this.
Yeah, because it has to stop. One, as parents, we have to stop trying to be our children's friends and be their parents. We have to watch what our kids do. We have to watch where they go. Even if our kids get upset, we have to say, hey, I want to know where you're going. Mm-hmm. You know, my sons are 21 through 25, and I call their phone every 30 minutes. To see where they are. I don't care. I would use up their voicemail and everything else. But I'm going to know where you are. I have a son right now incarcerated, and he can't wait to get out to be part of this. You know, I'm not saying, you know, I have the perfect household or but I work towards that on building trust with my children. We have to start allowing our children to trust us, to be able to come to us, to share things with us. That's why a lot of these acts, I believe, are happening, because we're being friends with our children. We're not opening up to our children and talking with our children. You know, being my children, we pray together, we talk together, we play together. You know, that's things that we have to learn to do now. You know, especially, it saddens me to watch my young Afro-American men, you know, killing off one another. And I made up a saying in high school, you know, we've broken the chains on our arms and legs. Now it's time for us to break the chains on our minds. You know, there's something has to change, and it has to begin with each and every one of us.
Absolutely. Cynthia Bibbs, what an incredible story. And you're a mom, and moms have been driving this conversation in this city for a long time. Marley.
You know, now we want to get to another incredible story, and really one of survival. Many of you may remember this. Back in 2011, Lori Lee was kidnapped, badly beaten, set on fire, and left to die in a Southwest Grand Rapids neighborhood. She came to and ran to neighbors for help. Now, after weeks in the hospital, Lori survived, and she is actually here in our audience with us tonight. Lori, thank you so much for coming out here. Now, your case was not solved.
No.
Your attacker still out there.
Yes.
How do you live with that?
Well, I don't live in fear. I don't live in fear, and I know that someone who's out there and doing things like that, they're not going to be productive, they're not going to be happy, and I just believe that he will be caught.
You are just such a strong person. I can't imagine somebody going through all this and wanting to be right standing here to get a message out. Why did you want to be here tonight?
Just to let people know don't be in fear, but be cautious and let people know this can happen. I mean, a 38-year-old woman abducted and beaten and set on fire. I mean, things like this can happen. And just to be careful, especially with children.
Unbelievable. When you were going through this, when this was actually happening to you, did you really think you would survive?
I did, because the person who did this to me said, "You're going to die." And I said, "No, I'm not."
I've got to ask you, what is your secret to being so resilient? Because, you know, I have spoken to so many people in our community, and people are scared. they do live in fear, especially when you hear of random violence and especially when you hear of cases that have not been solved. Your attacker is still out there. How do you not live in fear?
My strength is in God. My strength is in God. And I have a very supportive, strong family.
And that has to help. Thank you so much, Lori Lee.
All right, this would be a great time. Again, we'd like to open it up, the floor, to any comments, questions, concerns, anything that anyone who wants to share. Let's head back here real quickly. You've got a Stop the Violence t-shirt on. What's your name?
Taj Gillespie.
What would you like to share with us?
I want to share this. The purpose behind violence comes from things deeper than the surface. I think it's internal. I think it's with the family structure. I think it's how children are raised. I think the lack of role models, the lack of mentors, the lack of other children seeing men in the community effective, that perpetuates them to not have a respect for other men, which in turn don't respect the teachers, in turn don't respect the police, and in return don't respect themselves, one another, or their peers. So that will force them to commit acts of violence because they don't have respect for the male. And they respect the women heavily. Some of them do, some of them don't, but they're mothers, so they understand a little bit, so they're more subjected to stop, be cautious when women are around. But let a man come around that they're not used to because their father's not around. So if their father's not around, how can they respect another man that's trying to tell them what to do and what not to do?
Great point.
So relationships is important.
Yes. And speaking of which, we've got a great success story. Vincent Jennings Jr., come on over here. You're a turnaround, right?
Yes, sir.
You're a boxer.
Yes, sir.
Tell us your story.
I was in a gang, kind of. East Ave. Everybody knew me from being on Eastern. Did things I ain't proud of. And I guess at some point, you want the best things in life, and you think that's the easiest way to get it by, you know, doing things you have no business doing.
Talk about this sentiment that's been brought up about male role models or the lack thereof in this community. Is that something that you had to struggle with?
Yes, but I also had other males in the community that took me by the hand. One guy that took me by the hand was a guy named Bill Lewis, the owner of Yesterdog. Kind of like a father to me. And there was other positive role models that was there for me. Hosea Reyna. It was a lot of guys.
You had a support network.
Yes,
Not
sir.
everyone has that, though.
No, sir. But it came from my hard work, my dedication, and they see me being so consistent. And I go to them when I don't know something. I go to ask somebody for help. So that's how, you know, I got the help I needed.
Vincent Jennings Jr., championship boxer, and a turnaround story. Thanks.